Yeah, and today's session is starting at 14, so we'll be having the session until 7:15. About more on more queries. Fine. So hope I have answered everyone. And now we should be more students by now. We are just we were somewhere 250 yesterday. So more of them will be joining. Meanwhile, please check if you can message them to join quickly if possible. And let's get started. We have worked on the code complexity analysis. And before proceeding further, let me just give you a small, quick play on what we have done because most of the students would need a continuation. And all the students are out of different levels. And we had a quick meeting on this thing already. And we are seeing that all of us should be coming on to the same plane, and not everybody in a different plane, so that it will be very easy for all of you to understand and move. And anyhow, the scope of the syllabus subject and the target would remain unchanged. So we don't make any change in that. Whatever we have done in the last session was discussing on the code complexities and working on the numeric problems. Uh, every day we'll have the lab session also, like what we have done in the last session. Every day we'll first discuss on the problem. So the explanation of the problem will be given to you in the lab session. And if after the explanation, if we did not get enough submissions, then we will discuss on the logic. And in spite of that, if I'm not getting more submissions, then we'll explain the code. What we have done on the watermelon problem yesterday, right? Explain the code, and then we'll try to execute this in front of you. So every day we'll have problems being added, and day by day, as we move on, we'll have lot many problems coming up with more complexity. Complexity of the problems will be increased as we are moving on to the advanced levels. In the first initial cases, we'll have decent problems, not very simple problems, as you have seen already. So we'll be solving all the problems, and most of the problems that you have in the lab session that you have seen are company oriented. The problems that are repeatedly asked in the decent companies, product based companies, will be put up here in the practice. Along with the code complexity analysis and the numeric problems, we have a lot many other things to do. And let me just give you a quick view on that. Code complexity is one very interesting topic, which would help us to write an efficient code for problems. Moreover, yeah, I got something for someone. Uh, I got something like an accelerated batch and a progressive batch. There is not much difference. The only difference part is bridging the gaps, because by the report what we got from the students, the IT team will make the gaps filled so that the batch one and batch two has really not a great difference. We are going to move on to the same problem logics, and sooner we'll be having a merging point where we'll have a merger kind of thing. We'll not merge two batches. The batches will go as is, but we'll have similar things discussed in both the batches at some point. The only part is we are having a little backlogs at places. You can see the questions from the students. Somebody is really doing good, well advanced, but somebody is having some backlog at some point. So, in order to cover all those backlogs, we might actually get introduced to more concepts than what we have in the other batch. That's it. So, there is not a really much big trade off there. So, just believe in that at least. For the first few days, you will have this backlogs being covered. For example, if we are working on a code complexity analysis and then we work on linear list data problems, we don't discuss the same in this detail. That's it. And then, so basically, I'm from batch 1, but I want to join in foundation bootcamp. If I join on meeting, attendance is provided or not. It's not about the attendance strategy. It's about, see, the sessions here should benefit the student. But if you are trying to move from a batch to batch, please contact your faculty coordinator. And nobody will stop you. It is purely based on your requirement. If you are really moving to a foundation batch or you want to go to an advanced batch, there is nothing like a foundation and advanced. We are trying to put up all the students to one common point, right? And of course, the trade-off for the batch 3 is purely going to service-oriented ones. But if the students are performing really well, they can get a merger into this. And batch 1 and 2, we really don't see any difference here. It's really cool. But batch 2, we'll be doing more backlogs as required, so that we'll be moving on to the common concepts. Fine. Having said that, yeah, Akhil, we will get this consecutive prime sum problem with some segmentation fault. Almost everybody is going to face problems. That's what I said. When you look at a problem, see, the problem statements would be very simple, like a prime number problem. Unless we work on the practice link, it will be very easy to define what a prime number is. And probably for the basic prime number, what can I do? I take a number I and check until n, 1 to n, and see if there are any factors. Of course, take off 1 and say from 2 to n minus 1. If there are any factors more than, if you find any factors here, then that is not a prime number. So you can just write that in 2 lines also. But then there are multiple logics hidden behind it, and we are going to solve all of them. Moreover, I have a doubt in watermelon problem. Yeah, you can ask it, Vardhan.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sir, actually, I solved the problem in the HackerRank.
Yeah.
But I have a doubt in that problem, sir.
Yeah.
In the logic, if you have the logic, can you able to show the things, sir? I mean, if you take the value 6, right? Yes, a watermelon problem, sir.
Yeah.
If there are 2 persons A and B,
yeah,
they need to cut the watermelon in equal pieces, but each person should want the even number of the even weights. I mean, if you take 8 means not equal, sir.
No, not equal. The problem says it is not obligatory that you need them equal. Not equal. You don't need them to be equal.
Okay, sir. If we want that same in the equal means, how I need to make, sir? I mean, I tried a lot, and for example, if you take a value of 6 means, it will take two things like 3 for a part A and 3 for part B, which is an again odd number.
Yeah, that's what. First thing is it should not equal to 2, but then if you are checking for equal pieces, then once you divide by 2, check if this percentile 2 is double equal to 0. If the divided part is an even number or not. If that is even number, only then you can say that it is even, otherwise no.
Okay, sir.
You divide it and then again check it whether it is even.
Yes, I spent more than half an hour on the same thing, but I didn't got it, so that I asked.
No problem.
Thanks a lot.
Fine. Yeah, fine. Is there any chance that abstract data structures can be discussed? Yeah, we are discussing abstract data structures. That's in the part 2, as we have given the big picture yesterday. We are going to discuss that. We are going to discuss everything until the graph problem. See, the problems are like this. Our target is to solve the graph problems. The complex problems on the graphs. So we are going to work on the algorithms of the graph, and whatever is required from every nook and corner, we are going to get everything covered so that we'll solve all the problems. Now, it's from this side that if I am going to put up some of the concepts, probably you are aware of the concept at some corner. But then there will be something missing in that. So just by looking at the heading, one should not get deceived that, okay, prime number, I know it. We know the prime number. It's not about knowing a prime number. It's about the problem solving, where you will get a lot of problem just by a prime number. Not only a prime number, there are so many logics which look very simple in the beginning, but they are not that simple. You might actually want to give a try. So when you look at a problem, just think on that. How to crack the problem with the corner cases. For example, the watermelon problem that we have seen in the last session, all it was saying was, I want to divide the number into even number, but then I could just divide the number by 2. And if it is even number, then it can be divided into even part. That was quite some logic. But then this part was the corner case. What does that mean? If I have 10 kg watermelon, I can obviously divide that into 2 and 8 or 6 and 4. You can divide that in any even part. You can divide even 6 as 2 and 4. Perfectly fine. You can divide 4 as 2 and 2. That's perfectly fine. But how can you divide 2 into 2 even parts? We cannot. So this is the corner case which most of us have missed. But then we executed this problem anyway. Not only this, every problem will have its own trickiness at some point. We'll move on to all those logics. Fine. Having said that, we were working on code complexities, and I got one more message from someone. So many people are from back. That's fine. Let us ignore that, because yeah, at least if students want to move in, they should take the permission of their faculty director, because the attendance is taken from the Zoom dump also, who all are attending and how long did they attend each session. So without the permission of your director, one should not come into this class. Please take care of that. Fine. So let's check it this way. If I have an order of one solution, which is a constant, and I'll just write it as 1, is the simplest thing, the very simplest thing of all the problems that you can solve, like adding 2 numbers. Then slowly moving on to log n, and which is less than log n, which is less than n, which is less than n log n, which is less than n square, less than n cube, less than 2 power n, right? And less than, say, 4 power n, less than, say, n factorial. There are many other complexities in between. We can ignore others, because these are the ones that you are going to frequently use. And this is the complexity expected in the prime number problem, the consecutive prime. The consecutive prime sum should be running in log n complexity. And then whenever you are having a search problem, all your search problems should be around log n complexity. They should not move beyond it. And order of n is a linear complexity. So whenever you are working on a linear data, very normally we expect a linear complexity on that. And then whenever you are organizing the data, we expect an n log n complexity there. And when you are working on n square is quadratic. So this is not a fit complexity for the basic problems. Whenever you have a problem that's going exponential, we'll try to bring them down to the quadratic solution base. Fine. I'll answer those admin queries in the lab session, please. Because let us use this time for the session here. And then when you are working on exponential, already that's kind of hopeless, because it is a very big complexity. And whatever we think on this is kind of research problem. If you are going to write solutions in 2 power n, then definitely that's a research problem. I'm not saying that 2 power n problem is not looked at. You have to look at it and bring down the complexity to n square. This is what you do in all the problems, like the DP problems. Most of the time, the grid problems that we are solving will be done at this area. But if you are working on this, then you are doing a research problem, like you are trying to bring down from n factorial to 2 power n and all. It is a kind of crazy problem. Some of the backtrack algorithms that we are going to work would provide this facility. Otherwise, it will be a tedious problem solving approach. So we are here, and let us see what do we have for the day. I have some more questions for you on the code complexity. So today we have a plan of doing the linear data, but then I have included some more code complexity questions here so that it will be facilitating and refreshing for the students so that you can quickly get into the concept. So let us get started. We'll put up this question. Check this. Can you tell me what would be the time complexity on this? Good. We are getting an order of Mahfouz Ali, not n log n. It should be order of n square. Why is it order of n square? Let us see. No, not n plus log n. It will be order of n square only. See, when I'm having to work from one number to a certain number like n, right? So what happens here? Let us look at this. If I'm moving from 1 to n, I'm taking n steps for sure. But in the loop, if I'm going to write for I equal to 0, I less than n, and I is equals to I plus 2, what did we get? We got the time complexity as n by 2, but we cut off n by 2 and call it order of n, which we have done in the last session already. So n by 2 doesn't contribute to anything. It is n here, right? So we are going to cut off the constants when you see them along with the unknown number n. So on this case, what happens? You will have n by 2 here, which is n by 2 here. So product of this is n square by 4. And whenever you see a big number by 4, just cut off the constant by 2, by 4, whatever. So we have to cut it off, and it is order of n square here. Hope that is clear, right? For all the ones who have included a log there, that should be clear by now. Come on, Shab, you can't put a log in there. Sir, I didn't get it. Sure, we'll discuss on this. See, what happens, let us put up the complexity this way. If I write a problem, okay, fine, got it, good. Anyway, let me give the explanation then. I'll just write this code, just check. Yeah, I is equals to 0 or 1, whatever, I less than n, and say I plus plus, which is order of n, right? Similarly, if I'm going to write for I is equals to 0, I less than n, and say I is equals to I plus 2, which is going to be n by 2, but still it is order of n, right? Similarly, if I write a logic on for I is equals to 0, I less than n by 2, and I plus plus, now you are taking one step at a time, but still you are reaching to what n by 2. So if you reach to n by 2, the complexity will be n by 2, which is order of n again, right? So all the three are going to contribute to the same complexity. So this will be order of n square. And hope this is understood by everyone. Yeah. Now let's go to the next one. Check this. That's good, Gautam. Yeah, Someshwar, that's good. Very good, very good. Yeah, Venkat Sankiran, that's right. Pranav, that's right. Good. Uh, yeah, we are getting answers, but I'm getting some diverse answers also. Not every answer is right. Let us see what happens here. First, determine the complexity line on line, right? For this, it is order of n, right? From n by 2 to n or 1 to n by 2, both of them will yield complexity of order of n only, right? So I get order of n here. And this one from 1 to n by 2 is order of n. But this linear loop, look at this carefully. The loop is running from 1 to n, but then k is k multiplied by 2. What does that mean? This is running in log n time, right? So log n multiplied by n multiplied by n. Don't multiply with this n, it is not there. So n by n by log n. So what should that be? It should be n square log n, right? Hope this is understood, right? This is n square log n. N square log n is n square log n only. No approximate. Y log n we got from Hemant. When you are working on a constant fraction, like what did we see in the last session? We have taken a constant fraction when the iterator moves in constant number, then it will be a constant complexity. It will go in a linear fashion because that's contributing to linear growth. But when it is moving in constant fraction, then we are going in a logarithmic pace, right? So for I is equals to 0, not 0, this example will be from 1. Say I less than n or equal to n, whatever. I is equals to I multiplied by 2. For example, if I have to reach n, okay, and in a code where I have a constant number like I is equals to I plus 1, I will take n steps to reach n from 1 to n. But here, when I value is 1, right, then I am at 1. Then at second step, 2, for some n, let us say n as 16. So if n is 16, how many steps will I need to reach 16 on this? 1. The next step is 2. 2 multiplied by 2 is 4. The next step is 8. The next step is 16. So in n steps, I am taking 16 steps to reach n here. But in the log, I am getting only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In 5 steps, I am reaching 16 already, right? So that is why it is a log complexity. We have taken this in the last session. Already the detailed explanation was taken, but if you still have some question on this, you can ask me. Fine. So this is n square log n, right? Then let's move to the next question. See, whenever there is a multiplication movement, then you can expect a log complexity there, right? Okay. So look at this and tell me what will be the complexity here. Perfect. Not a single wrong answer. Everybody gave right answer. Good. Very good. Yeah. So this is what is expected. Really, really. Now here, this is running on n, this is running on log n. So it should be n multiplied by log n. So n log n. Perfectly well. Yeah, you are right. All of you are right here in this question. So this increases the confidence. Really, really very good. Now, check this. Yeah, we'll go back to the slide method. Let's do this. Yeah, the first one is going to be n. The rest two are log n. So the log the n for the whole square on n. N is in the outer loop and log n whole square. So n into log the whole square of n. Done. Nitish Bharti has given right representation of that. And I got a question from someone, Vardhan, saying if I had a j by 2, do the answer is same. Which line do you say, Vardhan? J by 2. If I'm putting up as line 1, line 2, line 3. Yeah, in line 2, where do you want to put it? J equal to j by 2. Look at it carefully. This one says j is equals to 1, right? And j less than or equal to n by 2. Let us take n as 10. So n by 2 is 5. J less than equal to 5. And if you are writing j is equals to j divided by 2, you are decreasing. Your value is expected to increase, not to decrease. If you do this, then what happens? The value will always be less than 5 and you are actually moving backward, right? It is like this. If I write j is equals to 10, j less than 100, and if I write j minus minus, what happens? Instead of incrementing, I am decrementing here. Exactly the same dot I am doing here. So what happens? It will be 9, 8, 7, 6. Now it will be infinite times less than 100 only, right? So I cannot do this here. I have to increment it in order to reach n. Otherwise, it will be infinite loop. Yeah. What if we have a j power 2? You mean at this point or at this point? J is equals to j into 2. That is what we have. Which place do you mean? Say 1, 2, and 3. At third position, what do you want to write? J is equals to j equal to j into j. Yeah, this is running exponential. Like this is still a log, but not a base 2. It depends on the value of the j. So you'll be moving much faster now. But one point, you cannot start at 1, otherwise it will keep on 1, 1 into 1, 1 into 1. So just start this value from 2 and it is running exactly the same, multiplied by 2. So it will be 2 into 2, 4. Next time it will be 4 into 4, 16. The next time it will be 16 into 16. So it will move much faster than this, but still it will be a log. Fine. So this one, this is not for the time complexity. This is to analyze. That is, you have to tell me how many number of times this print statement will be executed. Satya, just be vigilant a little more. It is saying j equal to j plus I there. Come on, it cannot be n times because already the outer loop is running in n. Whatever this loop contributes to, right? See, it's to analyze what happens here is when I have the I value. Now look at this carefully. Don't jump into that conclusion yet. Let us assume n value to be. Sir, can you repeat the question? Question is only to analyze this code and tell the complexity. That's it. 11 times, come on, Akhil. It depends on n, right? So you cannot come up with the number. So right. Let us go to with this explanation. Say n is equals to 3. Let us assume n is equals to 3. Okay. Then j starts at 1, right, and moves until 3, right, because n is 3. J starts at 1 and moves until n, but j is incrementing in terms of I. So if I is 1, j takes one step at a time. Okay, Akhil, probably. So let us check with this case. If I am getting n is equals to 3 and j starts incrementing from 1 and it takes one step at a time as long as I is 1, because j is incrementing in terms of I. Then when I value is 2, j starts at 1 but increments in the terms of I. So first time j value is 1, second time j plus I is 2, right? So 1 plus 2 is already 3. So you're reaching 3. And you stop at that point. Then when it is 3, that is when I value reaches n. When I reaches n, j starts at 1 but stops immediately because j is equals to j plus n. Why n? Because I reached n already. So if you are adding that value, you are already crossing it. 1 plus n, right? So you're crossing it. So it will not take more steps than one step when I value reaches n. So I'm assuming n to be 3, and this is what happens. You're taking one step at a time and you are running in order of n for this iteration. For the next iteration, I is 2, you are taking two steps at a time. So if I write a loop for I equal to 0, I less than n, and I equal to I plus 2, we know we are running two steps, so that is n by 2, right? So for this iteration, it is n by 2. N by 2 times I'm having this printf executed. Then for the next iteration, it is n by 3 because we are taking three steps at a time. Similarly, if n is not 3, n is n, then at some point it will reach k and I take kk steps at a time. So it will be n by k, right? And then when I reach n, it is n by n, exactly like this case, 3 by 3. So only one step. So I'll take n by n steps. So what is the number of times the print statement executed is the summation of all this. So n plus, n by 2 plus, n by 3 plus, and all until n by n, right? This is what I get. Now, if you are summating all of them, you would get this. N plus, n by 2 plus, n by 3 plus, until n by n. Hope this is clear. Any doubt until here? Because I'll derive something else now. Yeah, Sahitya, I was expecting that. So yeah, let me explain once again now. Check this. On I is equals to 1. When I is 1, what happens to j? Look at j. J value is starting at 1, j less than equal to 1. So 1 less than equal to 1, which is true. Then enter and print what? Star. So you will be printing the star here. After printing j plus I, that is I value is 1 here. So j equal to j plus 1, which is 2. So now you are checking 2 less than equal to 1. No. So it will stop. Stop and go where? Go to ith loop, right? And I plus plus will turn I value to 2. When I value is 2, j starts at 1 again. Now 1 less than equal to 2, which is true. So you enter and print a star, right? Then j equal to j plus I. What is ith value of j? 2. So j equal to 1 plus 2, which is 3. So now you are having 3 less than or equal to 2. No. So you should stop here. Then move on to 3. Then you have j value starting at 1, and at 3 you're stopping here. At this point you start at 1, you go to directly 4, so you'll stop here because j equal to j plus I. Each time you are incrementing in terms of I value, right? So what does that contribute to? It contributes to this value of taking n steps, and the next time you are incrementing in 2 terms, so n by 2. The next time you are taking 3 so n by 3. The next time, if I value reaches at some k, I am taking kk steps at a time, so the complexity will be n by k at this point. Because it is nested, I have to accumulate all of them. And obviously, when it reaches to nth position, it will be n by n. That is only one step is what j would take there. Now, how many times print statement is done? Here, all the n times. Here, n by 2 times. If n is say 10, then what? N is 10 and j value is 1. 1 less than 10, true. One time printed. Then you are taking one step at a time. So 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 less than 10, true. One more time. 3 less than 3, one more time. So you will be printing star all n times here. Right. Later, when n value is 10, you start at 1. The next step will be j is 2. So 1 plus 2 is 3. So you are moving to 3. Then 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 plus 3, 5 plus 2 is 7. So you will be moving in terms of this only. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you are printing only 5 times. Instead of printing 10 times, you are printing 5 times, which is n by 2. Right. So whenever you are moving in terms of I, you are actually moving in the terms of ith value here. So n by 1, 1 step at a time, n by 2, 2 steps at a time, n by 3, 3 steps at a time, n by k steps at a time, n by n steps at a time. Obviously, when it reaches n, you are taking all the n steps. That is only in one jump you are reaching n. So what is the total number of times this print statement has got executed is the summation of all this, right? I hope this is clear as of now till here.
Time complexity for this code is, sir?
Yeah, we are moving to time complexity. Once we evaluate this, the further steps will yield to time complexity. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you, Venkat. So this is clear, right? Sahiti and anyone else, like, so far this is clear, right? From here to here. Yeah. So now what do you do is you just check what can we do on this. Take n out. N is common. Once you take n out, I'll give you a simple logic. Now you take whole 1 hour to derive this, so I'll not derive it. I'll just give you this statement: sum of fractions is equal to log. Fine. So just keep this in your mind. Sum of fractions is a log because it is not sum of numbers. It is sum of fractions yet. So I get a log n inside and n is outside. So n into log n is n log n. So this is giving me n log n complexity. Why should this give n log n complexity? Let us check. So far this is understood, right? I'll tell you why n log n complexity. Why did I get log n? But as of now, this derivation is clear, right? From the step 1 to step 2 to step 3. Done. Good. So now, let us see, why do I get the log here? Because check in this case, when iterator is moving faster towards the target. Okay. Check first step, you are taking n steps. Second step, n by 2. Third step, n by t. When you are dividing or multiplying, it is about a constant fraction. Here it is not even constant fraction, it is a variable fraction, that is incremental variable fraction. So what happens, I am moving much faster and faster towards n. First time, whatever the time I have taken is not the same time I take on the second iteration, the J loop. J loop takes n steps here. The next time n by 2, the next time n by 3. So when you are moving in constant fractions like this, then that will yield into a log. right? So that is why J loop runs on a login. So that is why we got a login on the J loop. And I loop as it is from 1 to n, so we are getting n here. And that is why we get n login. Fine. So is incrementing in the terms of 1, in terms of I, right? So j increments in terms of 2, 3, 4. So if you submit all of them, then you will be getting a login for the fractions and n for the outer loop. Then what would be the complexity here? It's a simple one, a very simple thing. Yeah, very good. So that should be a square rooted, because if I am running on a number, I square is less than n is as good as I less than root n. So if I am running until n, it is n complexity. If I run until root n, it will be a root n complexity. So it's as good as this statement is as good as this statement. Fine. So then, yeah, this is a little tricky question. I'll just show you. Which one is rooted? Yeah, rooted, Rahul. Right. This one is a square root n. And the next question, go slow here. Of course, I have a constant fraction multiplication here, but just go slow, look at the code carefully, and analyze. Don't give me the complexity yet. Just analyze and tell me what will be the number of times print statement is executed. Moreover, if you need, just put an equal to here. Don't make a great yeah issue on that. You can just make an equal to if you require. So check on this and tell me what will be the number of times the print statement is executed and what will be the complexity at the end. This is sort of a little tricky one, but let's try. No. You can take a couple of minutes. No. 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 No, it is not n. Obviously, the outer loop itself is contributing to n. So inner loop should be contributing to something else, right? Without all this, without these two lines, only the outer loop itself is enough to get order of n already. Yeah, I'm getting quite some options. And that was quite good, Priyadarshi. I appreciate it. Really good. And we got, is print statement inside the for loop or outside? So no, it's inside the for loop. Wow, Sai Krishna Reddy, that's perfectly right. Very good. Very good. Very good. Uh, mm, Navyasri, you're almost very near. And Janavi, you're right. Perfectly well. Fine. So let us evaluate this. Remember this point carefully. You're almost very near, Lakshmi. See, it is like this. Let us answer the question this way. When you look at a problem, put up the question this way. Is it moving faster? If you say yes, when do you say yes? Whenever there is a constant fraction involved. Then again, you have to put a question. What is it? It means what? Is that the iterator moving to target? So what is moving faster? Is iterator moving to target faster, or is the target running faster? Is the target moving faster? Now, what happens with this two is, look at this carefully. What we have seen as an example in the last session, if I am moving from one place to other place, from 1 to n, and if I take linear steps, I am going to take order of n time, for sure. But if I am taking a multiplication of 2 or 3, then I am actually moving exponentially faster, right? And I am reaching the target. So what is I here? I or j is the iterator that is moving. So I equal to I multiplied by 2 for I reaching n. On this, iterator is moving faster. So definitely that's moving on a log. But in this code, let us check this code. J is the iterator. Ignore the fact that you have I there. Let us look at this loop only. J is the iterator and J is moving in simple steps. J is not moving faster. J wants to reach M and M is at 3 steps away initially. The next time when you are visiting the J loop, M is at 9 steps away. So for each such case, you are taking longer and longer time to reach. Here, the iterator is not moving faster. The target is moving faster, right? So as long as the target is moving faster, you will take longer and longer time to reach that target. So this is on contrary exponential complexity, not log complexity. It will be log complexity if j equal to j multiplied by 3 was given and m value was not modified, then definitely it is log. But j is not moving. J is the iterator which is moving in one step at a time, but the target is moving faster. And this M is right inside this for loop. For every I value change, you have M value changed, and M is effective for the new value each time on J. So if I have to write it, I value is 3 and M value will be 3. I value is 1 initially. When you enter, M is 3, right? So when M is 3, then what do I see? J value is running from 1 to 3 because M is the target. J should reach M each time. J will reach only M. And we are printing it. Now, you are looking at the second option, like the second iteration of I, J value will be running until 3 square, which is 9. Every time you are multiplying by 3. So this is moving on 3 square, 3 power 3 until I value reaches n. When I reaches n, m value reached 3 power n already, right? Why is m always remaining 1, Pranati? Check here. M is 1 here. Once you are entering the loop, 1 into 3, m value should be 3, right? Once the J loop finishes, I increments to 2. What happens? M is equals to 3 into 3, right? So M value will be 9 now. Then the next time when you are coming here, it is 9 into 3. So is it not 27? So M value is incrementing each time. Yeah, M is 1, but why is M not incrementing? We are clearly incrementing the M here, right? 1 into 3 is not 1, it is 3. It doesn't remain 1. The next time when you iterate, M value is already 3, so it should be 3 into 3, right? Please once tell how M is updating. Mm, see, let us put up on this. Yeah, Pranati got it. Sure. Okay, just look at it then. Vardhan and anyone who has still a doubt on this. This is the outer loop, right? So when I value is 1 less than, let us say, some 10 or something, n value. Then you enter, and what is initial value of m? 1, right? M is equals to 1 into 3. So what is the value of m now? M is equals to 3, right? And then Anisha, your mic is on. If you are keeping your mic on, we are going to get all your domestic issues with us, and we are going to blackmail you because we know it now. Fine. See, we got m equal to 3 here, right? Then you run on J loop, whatever. Whenever you come to I value obviously is increased to 2. So when I is 2, 2 less than 10 is 2. So you enter. While you enter, m is equals to m into 3. What is m now? 3. So 3 into 3. So m value is updated to 9. Then J loop executes. Then again I value increments to 3. Then you enter. While you enter, what do? M value is 9. 9 into 3. So m is updated to 27. Each time we are updating the m value here. Right? Fine. So now let us look at hope that is clear, right? Now, m value, because it is incrementing on each step, that's fine, Anisha. Okay. So let us check here. The value of j is 1 to 3, including the outer loop. So don't consider the outer loop now. I'm already including it here, right? Whatever you have to derive from this only. Uh, j value is running 1 till 9, including the outer loop, right? So we don't consider the outer loop. Just because of the outer loop only, I am having this inner loop executing, right? M equal to m into 3 is the uh, mercy of I loop already. So what do we have? We have this running on 3 times, 9 times, 27 times, and to 3 power n times. What is this? Sum of the powers of the number. So x power 1 plus x power 2 plus x power 3 until x power n. So if I have this to be evaluated, sum of the powers of the number, we have a formula. X power n plus 1 minus 1 by x minus 1. This is the generic formula for this. Now, what do you substitute? 3 is substituted in the place of x. So if I substitute 3, what do I get? 3 power n plus 1 minus 1 by 2. So by 2 can be cut off, minus 1 can be cut off, and n plus 1 can be cut off. Because all constants will take off lower orders. And what is remaining? 3 power n. So the total number of times the print statement executes is this equation, and the total complexity will go to 3 power n. Hope that is clear, right? Some of us have already got that answer, which was quite good. I got something like, explain it again, sir. Sure, Akhil. Please look at this way. So far, is it understood until here? Because we'll get explained from there. Yeah, good. That saved the time. Now what do we do is we'll carefully try to evaluate. Yeah, try to evaluate from here. When j is running until 3, what is the work done? The work done is 3 here, right? because 3 times the loop is printed, the print statement is printed 3 times. Plus, what is the next work done? Until 9 times. So I printed 9 times. Then I printed until 27 times, right? So on, we are moving until what? Until 3 power n. At the last, it is printing until 3 power n. So if I have the number series given this way, that is 3 plus 9 plus 27 plus until 2 power n, this is the sum of the powers of the number. So you just take a number x power 1 plus x power 2 plus x power 3. If you go until x power n, this exactly is in the same fashion here. So what do we do is we'll just take the formula of that, which is x power n plus 1 minus 1 by x minus 1. That is, I'll write like this, x power n plus 1 minus 1 by x minus 1. This is the formula. So if I apply 3 on this, it is 3 power n plus 1 minus 1 by 3 minus 1, which is 2. So if I am getting constants associated with any addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, we'll cut it off. So it will be 3 power n plus 1 minus 1. Now minus 1 can be cut off because big number minus 1 is a big number. We have seen that already. So take off. Now 3 power n plus 1 and 3 power n are exactly the same for me. We can cut off the lower orders. So the complexity will contribute to 3 power n here. So the number of times print statement is executed is this, and then the complexity would go to 3 power n. Hope that is understood, right? Now, can we write n into 3 power n, sir? You cannot. It looks like that, but the very reason we are going to 3 power n is because of the outer loop included here. See, the total work done is depicted in this statement only, right? So we are going to use only this part to evaluate the work done. Why is the value 3 here and 9 here? Because of the outer loop already. I'm including the outer loop already, and that is why I'm getting this. See, without including the outer loop, I don't get n into 3 here, right? So we don't need to get this n again and call it as n 3 power n. You can just say 3 power n. So I have a small homework for you. Check this. Please quickly note it down and analyze what is the time complexity of this. Don't tell me immediately. Please don't evaluate now. I just gave the time now only to copy. Just copy it. Fine. Hope you have taken it. Good. See, if you write, it will stay in the mind for longer time. Writing is a good alternative. Fine. So now let us look at a small question, a very famous question indeed. I'll give you a small story here, which is related to multiple things. The story that we are going to do now is helpful in bit manipulation. Okay. And many other quick areas. Go back to the question again, sir, please. Okay, sure. We'll check this. Yeah, this is the one. Fine. So Yeah, Shahab, a recurrence relation we'll study, but master method is not very required. If it is required, we can do that. For competitive coding, whatever is required, we can get this. Then uh, let us move on and check. Uh, no, Gita, this is proprietary content, so I don't think so. But you would get a reference material anyway in LMS. Of course, you will have similar kind of questions and answers. Fine. Let us see here. Not only bit manipulation, there are many other things. And whoever has attended my session earlier would know this question already, but just bear with this question. Uh, the question is about this Roman soldiers killing each other, right? So you know the question better. Whoever has attended the session earlier. Don't reveal the answer then in the group. There are Romans. This is the real world problem, like what happened in the history, which has taken into the math world. Romans and Spartans, there was a fight, a war. Okay, and Sparta defeated Romans, and some of the Romans could soldiers could run away, and they are taking a refuge in the jungle, somewhere in the cave. And Spartans came to know that Romans are hiding. Now, what options Roman have? They cannot go and fight with Spartans because the entire army couldn't win. What would a small battalion do? So no, they'll not let the enemies kill them because that is a pride issue. Now, one of the soldiers suggested that let us commit a suicide. Successful idea, but then one of the old gentlemen from that said that no, 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 committing suicide is a sin. No committing a suicide. Then they came up with an idea of killing each other. So what was the plan was they'll all stand in a circle. So we have one, two. I know I'll get the uh, good pronoun. We'll have some N soldiers here. Now what is N is undetermined yet. For now, we'll take N as a number like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Let us say we have 9 soldiers here. 9 soldiers, what would they do is they would take a glory sword, and whoever is going to hold the sword is the first person. First person will hold the sword and kill the neighbor. Hand over the sword to the next person in that row, in that moment of the circle. Then third person will kill the fourth one and give it back to five. Five will kill six and gives to seven. Seven out of compassion will kill eight and give the sword to nine. Now nine will kill the neighbor one and hand it over to the next living neighbor because two is dead, one is died. Three will hold the sword. Now three will kill the next neighbor, which is five, and give it to the next living neighbor, that is seven. Seven will kill nine, and seven is the one who is living now. All other people are dead. So what is the plan here is once they finish this killing spree, whoever remains will have to commit a suicide. So committing suicide is a sin, but instead of order of n suicides, we are condensing it out to order of one suicide. So that is what their plan was. So they came up with this idea. Acha, three is living. My God. So let us get the sword given to three then. Thank you. If three is living, three will get the sword, and three should kill seven, and three will be the winner then. So let us confirm. Is it three? Yeah, you're right. So three will be the winner. Now what happens? Out of n soldiers, it can be any big n. Uh, one soldier will be alive at the last on this killing spree, right? So whoever is here, winner, will have to commit a suicide. But in the real world, the Roman soldier could not gather courage to kill himself, and he got surrendered to the Spartans. So this has given a question in the math world saying if this problem has turned into an abstract of n soldiers, okay, given n soldiers, and if they are going to kill alternative persons in this fashion in the circle until one soldier remains, can you determine who is the survivor, who is the winner or the survivor? Given n soldiers. Yeah, 3 kills 7 and he has to commit suicide, but he did not commit it yet. So 3 is the survivor in this. So for any given value of n, can you tell me who is the survivor? How can we solve this problem? There are various interview questions on this based on different stories. They'll give you a monkey and banana story, probably they'll give you the coins problem. They'll just change this into a different form and shape, but the base question is this. I've got a message. Could you please explain the killings again? Sure. Okay, fine. Let us assume that we have, you can give me some n value, uh, a smaller n. Give me an n value, Prithvi. 5 is too small. No, 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 I'm asking Prithvi. 5 is too small. You can guess it easily. Don't give me 100. I'll take half an hour to kill everyone. Yeah, 11. Let us fix on 11 now. So let us see if there are 11 soldiers, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Now, if I am going to see these killings, 1 is holding the sword and kills 2. Now 3 is holding the sword and kills 4. 5 would hold the sword, kills 6, and hands over to 7. 7 is holding the sword, kills 8, hand over to 9. 9 is going to kill 10 and hand over to 11. 11 should be killing 1, right? And hand over to 3. 3 will be killing 5 and hand over to 7. 7 will be killing 9 and hand over to 11. 11 will be killing 3 and 11 should be the survivor. Is that right? Did I kill people correctly? No, no, no. 11 7 is missed here. So we have to have 7 here. 7 should remain. Yeah, 7 should remain. So let us kill people again. So 1 is going to kill 2. Let us darken this by this. Fine. So 1 kills 2, 3 is remaining. 3 kills 4, 5 is remaining. 5 kills 6, 7 is remaining. 7 kills 8, 9 is remaining. 9 kills 10, 11 is remaining. 11 kills 1, 3 is remaining. 3 kills 5, 7 is remaining. 7 kills 9, 11 is remaining. And 11 kills 3, 7 is remaining. 7 kills 11 and 7 will be the survivor here. So let us see if 7 is the survivor. Fine, perfect. So 7 is the survivor now. So can you tell me, given n soldiers, how to solve this? Who is the survivor? You can give me a random number. Let me try without doing all this, if I could do it. Don't give me too small or too big number. Circular linkage is going to be order of n square. We know that to be done in lesser number. Okay, I got a number 25. So should it be 19 on 25? Check. Okay, Nikhil gave 20. 20 is like 9. Anything around order of n should be okay. N and kill n plus 1. Where do you get n plus 1 soldiers? There are only n, Nikhil. Fine. So the way to solve this problem, there are multiple ways. I'll give you one method. In this problem, you could solve it this way. Yeah, for kill, make them do logical and operation with 0 to make the key as 0. Yeah, that works out. That will be a heavy data structure, but yet in every round, we will all even numbers will be removed. Of course, that will be, and only odd numbers will remaining. But then, Praveen, it is going to be order of n square. That is what just now we got with Sai Krishna Reddy saying circular linked list. That's true. What happens on a circular linked list? First, you will finish a circle, which is n. The next is you finish a circle, which will be n by 2. Next, you will do a circle, which will be n by 4. So you will keep on doing this. Operations will take more time then.
Excuse me, sir.
And yeah,
So is it given that the smallest number will be the first one to kill its adjacent neighbor, or it can be any random number from the list?
anyone who holds the sword is the first person to start with.
Okay, so who holds the sword? The smallest number
Yeah.
or the
No,
first
no, no.
important?
See, there are just people standing here. Whoever you are going to give the sword, I'll start one from there. That's it.
Okay, sir.
You can put anywhere. So this is one now. Then this is 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
So yeah, in other form, if I have to answer your question, yes, the smallest number is going to hold the sword because number is awarded much later than the sword. Fine. So the way we solve this is, if I have n soldiers, what should I do is I should get uh, the smallest number. Yeah, before telling that, let me tell you, there is a lot of binary number concept in this. How would we work on a binary number? I'll just reveal it, for which you have to do a small exercise now, the class work. I'll give you the decimal number and say the binary number. Now, check on this. For every decimal number that I write, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Let us take two more numbers, 15 and 16. Now let us represent the binary form of each of them, say in 5 bits. We don't represent in 5 bits normally. We represent in powers of 2, that is either 4 bits or 8 bits. But for this example, let us represent in 5 bits. So what do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? The next number is 0, 0, 0, 1. This 1 is represented this way. Then we have, am I writing it too far? So we'll try to put this a little near. Fine. So I'll just put up these numbers a little nearer. So I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In 5 bits, 0, then 0, 0, 0, 1. Then you get what? 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. Fine. Yeah. Yeah, I'll write it, Beulah, here because everybody would be able to look at it. Yeah, that's it. So I'll just put up the numbers like this: is 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, double 0. Fine. And 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, and 0, 1, 0, 1. Did I get it right? 1, double 0. Sorry, this is 0, 1. And this is 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. I like this number very much. 10, because it is 10, 10. Easy to remember. So have some blind signs like this. It will be easy while you work. I was going wrong here actually, to admit. I was going wrong here, but then I thought that 10 should be 10, 10, right? So this was wrong here. So I could correct it. So have these blind signs. And then in a moment, Mahi, once we give this 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, then 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, and 0, 1. Did I write it right? 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, then 1, 0, 0, then 1, 0, 1, then 1, 1, 0, then 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, and the last number is going to be 0, not 0. For 16, I have taken 5 bits, right? So 1, 2. Now identify the numbers which are very peculiar. Not 10. 10 is for my blind sign, but identify some numbers with a peculiar pattern. Are some numbers in this following a pattern? Of course, you're going to come up with the first thing, like even numbers are ending by 0, odd numbers are ending by 1. Other than this, any other peculiarity? Some numbers will have a peculiar pattern in this. Fine. Consecutive numbers ending in 0 and 1. Laya, you are almost near. Very good. Consecutive numbers of a consecutive number of a number ending with zeros ends with 1. Yeah, that's what ordered even case is. And a square number are having only single one. Good. You are very near, Nikhil. Very good, Vardhan. That's quite good observation. Just observe a little more. Shahab, you are almost there. No. Now, let me reveal the solution part. How do we work on this solution? Then we'll do the coding logic. Yeah, Devendra, you are really good. Very good. You are almost there. Good. Fine. So let us see here. The problem statement was about the killing spree, and how do I get the solution is for a given soldiers n, right? Subtract the highest power of 2 from n, and whatever you get as a remain multiplied by 2 plus 1 should be the answer. For example, if n value is equals to 20, what I got, what did I do was 20 subtract highest power of 2 within 20. What is within 20? 16, right? So 20 minus 16 is 4. 4 multiplied by 2, right, is 8 plus 1 is 9. So it should be 9. I'm trying to figure out the highest power of 2 within n. So for example, if it is already 16, 16 minus 16, because 16 is the highest power of 2 within 16. So it will be 0. 0 multiplied by 2 will be 0 plus 1 is 1. So if n is a power of 2, 1 will be the survivor. Always. You can go into the tricks later. For now, you understand n minus highest power of 2 multiplied by 2 plus 1 should be the answer. So that is yielding the answer. For example, in this case, what is the number we have taken? 11. So 11 minus 8, right? 3. 3 multiplied by 2, 6, plus 1, 7. 7 is the survivor. So this is how I am going to get the survivor. You already know what you should look at in this series of numbers. So just keep looking at this numbers now. And I think it's time for us to move to the attendance part. Mahendra, please post the attendance link in the group. Mahendra, you have the attendance link with you? Yeah, it's posted. Oh, thank you, sir. So we got the attendance link posted. Please post the attendance. Once done, please let me know.
So what was the pattern in the binary form?
Yeah, I'll go there. We'll discuss on that. Yeah, Satvik Reddy and Shab. Right. You can take 10 minutes break, but don't go away. Don't log off. Just stay in the group. Just go out, have some water, and come back quickly. So in 10 minutes, we'll resume back. So hope everyone is back. Let us check the logic. We were working on, we were working on the numeric data representation. Yeah, we'll move to that problem statement. See, the problem statement was on nickel. Good. Yeah. So let us move and check here. Whatever the exercise we have done was, we have seen the N soldiers and we have seen the pattern of killing, and all we have to do is to find out who is the survivor, right? So this is what we have done on N soldiers. Then we have seen the formula on how to find the survivor. So if N is the number of soldiers we have, subtract the highest power of 2 within N. Like if you have 11, highest power of 2 within 11 is 8, less than N, the highest power. What are the powers of 2 within 11? 1, 2, 4, 8, 16 is crossing 11. So within 11, the highest of power of 2 is 8. So we take 8 and subtract it. So when you subtract 8, what do you get? 11 minus 8, you get 3. 3 multiplied by 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So 7 is the survivor. Now, how do we look at it in the binary form here? In a binary number, identify the numbers that are powers of 2. And do you have any peculiarity with them? Look at this. 1 is a power of 2. 2 is a power of 2. 4 is a power of 2. Right? 8 is a power of 2 and 16 is a power of 2. Now, do we have any peculiarity on these numbers? Let us see. I'm just highlighting those numbers which are the powers of 2. Do you find something very similar about these numbers, binary numbers? Not number of zeros are same. It is a 1 and all zeros. Yeah, Devendra, very good. Only one single 1 will be present. If you ignore the left side zeros, it is only 1 and all zeros. Fine. So if a number is 1 and all zeros, then that is a power of 2 in the binary. In binary numbers, if a number starts from 1 and remaining all zeros, then that's definitely a power of 2. Then, if I have to write a solution for this killing spree, how do I write? For some N value, which is unknown for me. So X is equals to N. So I'll take some P. P is equals to N. While P minus minus, or just while P, check if P is a power of 2, right? So you are taking the power function to check if P is a power of 2. If P is a power of 2, then what do? Answer is equals to N minus P, right? And 2A plus 1, you can just return this statement. Done. And whatever you do is just a break. Done. Otherwise, what do I do? P minus minus. So first check if I have 11, 11 is a power of 2. No. Then P minus minus, 10 is a power of 2. No. Then check 9 is a power of 2. No. Then check 8 is a power of 2. Yes. Then what do? N minus 8, the initial value 11, 11 minus 8. Whatever you get is an answer A. So 2 into A plus 1 is returned or printed. Done. But what happens with such a code is this power of 2, to check if the number is a power of 2, I take a log n time. To check if a number is a power of 2 or not, we take log n time. And for executing this loop, until we find the power of 2 within the given number, we are going to take order of n time. Why order of n here? Let us see. If n value is say 1000. So from 1000 to until you find 512, which is the nearest power. So you are going almost n by 2, which is order of n. So this loop is running in order of n. For each such value in n, I am taking a log n time. So it takes n log n time. for me to find if I'm running on this logic. And sir, can you please repeat? I lost my net connection. From where? Uh, Fine. I'll just repeat everything once more once I finish this. Let us look at this. Yeah, this code. That's what the code is. Very simple. Whatever I do is I'm determining that I have a n value, and for this n, if n is 1000, I start from 1000, right, and move until 512. And for each such number, I want to check if p is a power of 2 already. These 1000 a power of 2, 999 power of 2. So I'll be checking until 512. Until I get it, for each number, I take log n time to check if it is a power of 2. And how many numbers will I check like this? N numbers. Because 1000 to 512, right? As an example. So n log n is the time complexity on this. Instead, I can do something like this, which is, I'll just write the logic on the left side this time. Fine. So whatever I can do is, I know that the powers of 2 here are all 1 and zeros, right? So there is a logic of bitwise operator, ampersand, and. So if I do a bitwise and on the numbers that are power of 2 and one number less than power of 2, let us mark the one number less than power of 2 also here. One number less than power of 2 is this. Of course, here also it is a semi number. So one number less than power of 2. This is one number less than power of 2. This is one number less than power of 2. And this is one number less than power of 2. There is a peculiarity in one number less than power of 2 also. It will be all ones. Fine. So if n is a power of 2, if n is a power of 2, then n and n minus 1 will give you 0. So that's the logic. So what should I do here is I'll repeat the same loop, whatever the code I have given there. I'll erase this here, or I'll write the loop logic here. So we'll take this off. I'll write parallelly the same code, but then the logic can go like this. Yeah. So P is equals to N. While of P, I'm writing exactly the same logic, but I don't check P is a power of 2 or not. I just check now if P and P minus 1 is double equal to 0. N and N minus 1 will give 0 if N is a power of 2, for sure. You can just check with any number. Now this is N and N minus 1. So N is 8 and N minus 1 is 7. So what is 8? 1, 0, 0, 0. What is 7? 0, 1, 1, 1. Perform the AND operation 0 and 1, 0. 0 and 1, 0. 0 and 1, 0. 1 and 0, 0. So this is applicable on all the numbers that are power of 2. Okay. So now, if I am getting this, P and P minus 1 double equal to 0, this is doing the work of, so this statement is doing the work of this log n work. Instead of checking with the power function, I can just do this, and this is going to take what, order of 1 time instead of taking order of log n time. And after this, it would just remain the same. The logic would remain the same here. If it is 0, then A is equals to N minus P, and 2 into A plus 1 should be the answer, and break. So I'm not changing much in this, the same thing, but only this part is going to save my time. Instead of being N log N, it is order of N now. The complexity from N log N, I have brought it down to order of N. Hope that is understood, right? In order to find the survivor. If the core logic is clear, I'll give one more explanation on the code. We need to find the faster way, sir. Yeah, there is a faster way. That's what I said. You have, what do you say, bit manipulation. You will find a really faster. This is actually faster. This is n, but we'll do in less than n also. Yeah, fine. A is current soldier with SWOT. Yeah, 2a plus 1. If I'm going to give this solution in A, then A is the soldier who is the winner here with the SWOT now. What is the logic behind the formula written? Exactly. That part is what we are going to do in the bit manipulation. Where is this? I wrote it somewhere. Fine. And we'll do that while we do bit manipulation. There are multiple things in this, not just one. So slowly let us get introduced to the bits here. And why A equal to n minus p? Why A equal to n minus p? Check here. The logic says that I am going to subtract from n the highest power of 2. What is highest power of 2? I start from n, and in the process of moving to 1, I have taken p and check if this is a power of 2, the next number, the next number, the next number, and at some point p is the power of 2 there. So I am subtracting that p from this n minus p, and whatever is the remain, multiply by 2 plus 1, right? So here, check, I am doing a constant p minus minus if p is not a power of 2. So within this, we are checking it. Otherwise, we are doing a p minus minus, and we are checking again if p is a power of 2, right? Yeah, it is possible, Nikhil, but not now. We'll do the constant solutions also. So, hope this is clear, right? And let me give the part as an algorithm here. The code turns to be very clumsy. So let us write just the algorithm so that you can implement that in any language, right? So fine. So now, how do you write this is, yeah. So how do you write this is, let us write this stepwise. Say step 1, read n. N is the number of soldiers you have. Then step 2, what do? Is check if n is a power of 2 already. If n is already a power of 2, then return 1. If n is a power of 2, just return 1. Otherwise, can we use log? It can be done in order of 1. If you use log, then it will be log n solution. Yeah, we'll discuss better solutions. First, let us go with this solution. Already we have seen order of n solution. From n, we have n log n, so we are bringing it down to n. Then step 3, what do? Check if n is a power of 2. If it is not, then take a temporary pointer p is equals to n and run a loop from n to 1 for p. So p to 1. And check if p is a power of 2. So if p power of 2, then take the answer as, how do you check this power of 2? P and p minus 1, right? So check the answer as n minus p multiplied by 2 plus 1, and just return the answer A and stop here. If not, else step 5, P minus minus, and go to step 4. Done. So you will be doing this from n to 1. Right? So any questions here? I'm actually happy that students are having really good questions, good queries. So this is how you learn to do a coding. We'll do that, Akhil, bit manipulation. Once I introduce everything, then we'll go to bit manipulation also. It's not the part now. Fine. You can do it not break, but then give a return. Stop is the term you use in algorithm. When you return A, it's already a stop. You don't need to write anything. Return is done. Fine. So having said that, let's move on to this numeric representation. Hope everybody is clear on the problem. Then when you are looking at the number system, one should be really clear about the binary, especially because there is a lot to do on the binary. We have just seen this, we have written it, and take my word as it is that you have to almost write it for multiple times so that you get this into your heart, because binary numbers are not going to change throughout the programming anyway. So this is needed, at least the first 16 numbers. Then we have octal number system also. What happens with octal is you will have the first 8 symbols unchanged. So decimal and octal will have the same numbers in the first 8 symbols. So that is 0 to 7 are 8 symbols. After that, we start having numbers by 10. So this is what we have seen in the problem statement yesterday, right? What was that problem statement? Equal basis. So in the base 8, if I am representing 12, I'll be representing in 14, because 8 is not a factor of 12. From 8, I'm not going to get 12 anyway, right? Done. And then if you have hexadecimal, then you will get 10 symbols as it is from the decimal. After that, you will get more 6 symbols, which are ABCD. Yeah, we'll open up the practice link, Manoj. Then I'll give you the practice link. We'll open it up now in a short while. I'll have a few questions here. See, this is only for representation. When you are printing values, a percentile D and percentile I are no different. They are the same. Percentile D is a decimal value. Percentile I is an integer value. Both are going to print the same value. P is used in pointers. When you are printing the data in a pointer representation, you use this. So this is going to print hexadecimal value with preceding zeros. I'll show you what it is. D value will be printing 12 because I have given 12 here. All the data is just 12. But percentile D is printing 12. Percentile P will print the equivalent hexa value, which is C for 12, but with preceding zeros. So this is mostly used while you are working with memory locations. And I is an integer, which is exactly the same as D. O is the octal representation. And we have just seen in octal, 12 is actually 14, right? Because 0, the decimal, and the octal, if I take, from the 0 to 7, I don't have the change in the symbols. After this, I'll have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So what is 8? 1, 0, 9, 1, 1, 10, because you got this 12, 11 will be 13 and 12 will be 14, right? So we'll get 14 in octal. When will the ASCII values be printed? So when you print it in the character that too in the range of 0 to 255 will get ASCII. And when you get X is going to print the hexadecimal value, but without this preceding zeros. So capital X will give you capital C, small x will give you small c. That's it. There is no other difference here. Other than this, I have a simple question. Let us try answering this. Check this question and can you tell me what will be the output here? Here is where somebody was asking about ASCII characters and you got this. So what do you think? So hope you are working it out in the book. Two, okay. Good. If you have not executed on the compiler and told the answer, then you are right, Sakiran. Fine. So I think I should get you to the answer, but hope people are trying because I got one right answer already. Sakiran gave it. Trying it already. Someshwar, you are almost right. Very good. See, it goes like this. Let's put up the char data. If I have to put the character, what is the size of the character? It is 1 byte, right? Size of the character is 1 byte. 1 byte means 8 bits. Then tell me what is the range of character from what to what? A range of characters. Yeah, 0 to 255, that is unsigned. But if it is signed, yeah, we got 0 to 127 minus 128 to 127. Very good. So let us see if that is possible. On the character, if I have 8 bits, let us establish the same. Say I have 8 bits, right? So let us consider bit 1, bit 2, bit 3, bit 4, bit 5, bit 6, bit 7, bit 8. And how do we name them? We name them as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Then we have the most significant bit given here. What do you mean by most significant bit? This bit is going to determine the magnitude. What do you mean by magnitude? Either it is a positive number or negative number. If the binary number starts with, the binary number can start with either with 0 or with 1. If it starts with 0, what number is it? If it starts with 1, what number is it? If the number starts with 0, that is the positive number. And if it starts from 1, that's a negative number. Fine. So I have the most significant bit, MSB, dedicated for magnitude, sign. So what can I fill the numbers here? The least that I can fill and the most I can fill. I can fill all zeros, which is the least thing that I can do, right? So 0 and all zeros, this will represent what? 0. Then what is the other extreme I can go? All ones, right? So all ones, if I have consecutively 7 ones, and you know how to evaluate it, it is evaluated as 2 power 0 multiplied by 1. We are not considering zeros here because we are now looking at all one case, right? So 2 power 0 into 1. If someone is not understanding this, please let me know. I am trying to just convert the number into a decimal. So you have to add all of them, right? So 2 power 0 is 1, plus 2 power 1 is 2, plus 2 power 2 is 4, then 8, 16, 32, and 64. So what is this number contributes to? It should be 127. This number contributes to 127. Good. Now, what can I get? If I get a 0 in the starting and consecutively all bits are 1, then I get 127 in the positive direction. But if I get the first bit as 1, because we did not consider the first bit yet, first bit is 1 and all ones, then should it not be minus 127, right? So if I am getting this value, then the range of characters, should it not be minus 127 to plus 127, right? But then we have got the range as minus 128 to 127. So which of these two should be true? Check carefully. Here we are filling the numbers. All ones is the extreme that I can do. So all ones with 1 in the beginning will be negative minus 127. and all ones with 0 is a positive 127, right? So do you see any discrepancy in this? In fact, it is. So just check and tell me.